talk about this traffic jam, though. It's important to say that it's affecting mostly buses, coaches, we should say, that cars and lorries seem to have a less of a terrible time going through Dover.
Yes, absolutely. I've got the latest from the Port of Dover. They say that any queues of lorries, and they're quite a familiar sight actually on the A20 from Dover to Folkestone, they have been cleared away, and tourist cars are flowing normally. But the big problem is those coaches. Over 300 of them yesterday, 140 today. That represents 20,000 passengers who have been effectively stuck for hours. And once again, we have seen at the start of something new since Brexit, since COVID, everything gets gummed up very quickly. Interesting to hear that clip of Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, reminded me very fondly of what the last two Prime Ministers said after the terrible scenes we saw last July, which was the kind of parallel to this. That was the first time since Brexit that large numbers of cars had gone abroad, and that, of course, gummed up. And this is the first time that lots of coaches went abroad. But at the time, Rishi Sunak told the French to stop blaming Brexit and start getting the staff required to match demand. And Liz Truss, you might remember her, said, we need action from France to build up capacity at the border to limit any further disruption for British tourists. And they need to ensure this appalling situation is avoided in future. So it is the fault of the French, but I dare say they might possibly say that we've got something to do with it, and that we were the people who signed up for and negotiated to be subject to third country national rules, which basically means, as you know, previously, you just turn up in your car or indeed on the coach and you wave your passports, and they would give you a friendly smile and usually send you on your way. If they stopped you and looked, which in my experience was rare, all they could do is say, oh, is this Alexis' passport? Yes or no. Is it valid? Yes or no. Is it him? Yes or no. Now they have to go through, theoretically, every single page, see when you've been into Europe, count up the days, make sure you haven't been there for more than 90 days in the last 180, and stamp the passport. All of that is required. We asked for it. Now,
I mean, and Simon, just to interject there, because I had to check this, it is Home Office guidance. And in fact, I don't know if it comes from the Home Office. I think it comes from the Foreign Office, that they say you should get your passport stamped when you go to the EU. They remind people and they say, if you don't get it stamped, make sure you get it stamped, because you might get into hot water it coming back the other way. So we are being told that we need to make sure that this procedure happens, that you have to get your passport stamped. Now, Natalie Elphicke, the MP for Dover, she put out a tweet late last night. She said, incredibly disappointed to see French border control problems once again adding to traffic mayhem, just as families are trying to get away for the Easter holiday. So are there any problems with French border control? What are they saying? Have they got shortage of staff? Are there strikes on? What's happening with French border control?
No, if I take you back to last summer, that third weekend of July, the start of the main school summer holidays, absolutely there was lots of French problem. The problems were arguably triggered by French police aux frontières showing up late on that crucial first Friday, and things rapidly unravelled. But there has been absolutely no suggestion that has been happening here. And I've got strange noises going on here.
You're in demand, Simon.
Sorry about that, everybody. So no suggestion that the French have been doing anything other than being diligent. And I note the line from the Home Office, but actually it's irrelevant. We asked for a hard EU frontier, like they have with Russia and with Turkey, to be installed in southeast Kent. The French are the people obliged on behalf of the European Union to control that frontier. I have not heard anything other than they are doing their job exactly as we asked them to do it.
Simon, looking forward to the summer, because there are going to be some rule changes coming about, things like fingerprints and face scans and all these things. Are they going to make that trip through Dover quicker, or are they going to slow things down even more?
Well, we're talking here now. The date keeps being pushed back for the introduction of the European entry-exit system. Again, this is something that we were actually on side with up until the Brexit referendum, and it's going to involve every time a third country national goes into the European Union, they have to have their facial biometric taken and they have to have their fingerprints taken. Now, we asked for that. It's possibly going to happen in November. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it gets bounced on to next year. But when it happens, things are going to get really serious. Talking to the boss of the Port of Dover, Doug Bannister, he says that at the moment, a family of four in a car takes 90 seconds to be processed. That compares with just a few seconds before Brexit. That is going to increase, he thinks, to 10 minutes per car. It is going to be utterly unmanageable. I think in any event after this weekend's miserable experience, we are going to see pretty rapid intervention by ministers, effectively saying, right, Port of Dover, you've got to tell the ferry companies not to sell too many tickets. We'll work out how many we can cope with. No more tickets after that. And that's a parallel to what Eurostar is doing at London St Pancras International. They simply don't have the space to cope with the full number of passengers after Brexit. They've actually started sending their trains away in the morning 1/3 empty deliberately because they can't handle the passengers. So that's what we're going to see, I think, going forward in Dover. But once we get to the entry exit system, well, the whole ferry industry is just thinking, what are we going to do? Government, you are a Brexit government. You pushed for Brexit. You got it through. You must surely have a solution. But as it is, I think people will abandon ferries, abandon the very environmentally friendly route of going in on a coach abroad and just end up flying, because that's not going to be nearly such a muddle.
Is there a chance, Simon, as the future will bring in an ESTA type visa that we have to get to travel to the EU, just like the one that you get for the US, where you pay a small fee and you've got cover for a couple of years? Might that absolve you from having to partake in the entry-exit system, as in for the UK not to be seen as a third country completely? And if you have that visa, maybe that you get exempt from those checks?
Absolutely not. We are, look, we wanted to stop.
I'm clutching
free
at straws,
movement.
aren't I?
Effectively, we asked exactly for what we've got now. There will be a so-called Euro visa coming down the road, probably a year from now or something, although some people say it's actually going to be kept until after the Paris Olympics. And that will not give you any special privileges. All it will do is cost you €7, valid for 3 years. And you will have to get that. We're doing a parallel system here, which will be the ETA, it's called. But no, that's not going to reduce the amount of hassle. It will slightly increase it. But, Alexis, I'd come back to this. Who wants to be like the Irish, like the French, like the Germans, going freely from one country to another? We don't. We asked with a democratic vote to make life much, much tougher. And my goodness me, be careful what you wish for.